They call me a gold digger, a nobody who got lucky. For 3 years, I smiled and stayed silent while my husband's family treated me like I was less than human. But tonight, at their precious charity gala, I was done pretending. Tonight, I would reveal who I truly was. And trust me, not one of them saw it coming. If you've ever been underestimated, looked down on, or treated like you don't belong, then this story will hit home. Because sometimes the quietest person in the room is the one holding all the cards. My name is Luna Cross, though that's not the name they'll remember me by when this night is over. For the past 3 years, I've been married to Nathan Cross. Yes, that Nathan Cross, heir to the Cross Empire. Their family name sits carved into skyscrapers, hospitals, and luxury resorts. They're the kind of people who think old money means inherited arrogance, and I was a mistake who somehow slipped past their gates. But when you marry into wealth, they don't just judge your background, they dissect it. Every word, every dress, every habit becomes ammunition. And if you're not one of them, you'll never stop being reminded. I grew up in a town so small, the grocery store doubled as a post office. My parents owned a tiny hardware shop. On Fridays, our big treat was ordering pizza and watching old movies together. It wasn't glamorous, but it was real. After college, I became a librarian, not because it paid well, but because I loved books. I loved helping people find the stories that helped them find themselves. But to the Cross family, my job wasn't meaningful. It was cute. To them, I was invisible, a background prop in their glossy family portrait. When Nathan and I met, it wasn't at some gala or business meeting. It was at a coffee shop near my library. He'd forgotten his wallet, and I'd paid for his latte without thinking. He promised he'd pay me back, but instead, he showed up the next day with flowers. I had no idea he was a billionaire. He never mentioned it. We fell in love over late-night takeout and long talks about dreams, not money. For once, I thought I'd found someone who saw me. Then I met his family. The moment I walked into their mansion for dinner, I realized I wasn't just meeting them. I was being evaluated. They didn't hide it either. Every glance, every comment was an examination, and the verdict was already written. I didn't belong. Nathan's mother, Isabella Cross, was the queen of polite cruelty. Her words dripped with sweetness and venom all at once. At their anniversary dinner last month, she introduced me to her friends like this. This is Nathan's wife, Luna. She works at the local library. Isn't that sweet? That word, sweet, felt like a dagger wrapped in silk. Her smile never wavered, but her eyes screamed, "You'll never be one of us." Then there was Victoria, Nathan's sister-in-law, a woman who thought cruelty was a form of sport. "Oh, Luna," she cooed during parties. "Tell us about your little book club again. It's just so adorable." And everyone would laugh like she just delivered a clever punchline. The worst part wasn't the jokes. It was the way they excluded me without ever saying it aloud. They'd plan family trips and forget to tell me, throw dinner parties and leave my name off the list. When I was included, I was seated at the far end of the table, right next to the help or the least important guest. And through it all, I smiled, because sometimes silence is your sharpest weapon. I wasn't quiet because I was weak. I was quiet because I was watching, memorizing every word, every smirk, every insult. Nathan saw it too, but he never confronted them. He'd squeeze my hand under the table, change the subject, try to diffuse the tension. He loved me, but he didn't understand how their words sliced deeper than any argument could. His silence was protection for them, not for me. Then came the gala, the Cross Foundation's crown jewel. The event where the city's elite gathered to flaunt their generosity and measure their worth by how much they donated. Every year, it was hosted by Isabella and attended by the kind of people who had their names engraved on museum walls. When this year's invitation arrived, I overheard Isabella and Victoria whispering in the hallway, "Do we really have to invite her?" Isabella's voice floated down the marble corridor. "She'll embarrass us. You know how she dresses. And she'll talk about her little library programs as if they matter to anyone important." Victoria laughed. "Maybe we tell her the dress code is black tie optional and hope she takes it as a sign to stay home." They laughed. Two women so used to mocking others at cruelty had become their language. At dinner that night, Nathan brought up the gala like he was stepping on thin ice. "The foundation event is next Saturday," he said. "Luna, you'll need something formal." Isabella's fork froze midair. "Of course," she said with a tight smile. "We'll make sure Luna has some guidance with her attire. We want everyone to feel comfortable." Translation: we can't trust her to dress like one of us. I didn't flinch. I just smiled and said, "I'd be honored to attend. Thank you for including me." They heard submission. What I felt was resolve. Because this time, I wouldn't just attend their gala. I would own it. The morning of the event, I woke early, the city still half asleep outside our window. As I got ready, I thought about every insult, every patronizing smile, every whisper. Then I smiled, because I finally understood the power of being underestimated. I wore a dress the color of midnight, elegant, simple, timeless. My jewelry? Family heirlooms, though none of them would recognize their worth. My makeup was soft, my hair classic. I didn't need to sparkle. I needed to belong. When Nathan saw me, his breath caught. "You look beautiful," he said, with a mix of pride and relief, as if he'd been afraid I'd give his family one more reason to sneer. We arrived at the hotel's grand ballroom beneath glittering chandeliers. Gold light bathed a crowd of polished people who smiled too wide and laughed too loud. Nathan relaxed the moment we stepped in. I could feel it. The relief that his wife wouldn't embarrass him. Isabella spotted us immediately. Her eyes scanned me head to toe before offering her verdict. "Luna, dear, how lovely you look. Not too much, not too little, just right." The compliment was a leash in disguise. But I smiled anyway, because I wasn't here for her approval. The evening played out like a well-rehearsed play. Isabella paraded me around, introducing me with that same condescending grace. "This is Nathan's wife, Luna. She works at our local library. Such meaningful work." That pause before meaningful was the truest thing she'd said all night. Victoria, never missing her cue, whisked me toward the Sterlings. Old money, real estate giants, the kind of people whose names got whispered in boardrooms. "Richard, Patricia, this is Luna," she chirped. "She's Nathan's wife. Isn't that charming?" Patricia's smile was all pearls and poison. "How wonderful that you work with books. I imagine it's so peaceful, nothing like the pressures of managing major investments." Richard added, "It must be quite an adjustment for you, going from small-town life to all of this. You must feel so grateful Nathan brought you into our world." Grateful. That word again, as if I'd been rescued. I gave him a soft smile. "Oh, I am grateful," I said, "though perhaps not for the reasons you think." Something in my tone made Nathan glance over. The others, of course, didn't notice. They just nodded, pleased that I'd stayed in my place. Dinner was served. I was seated, predictably, at the farthest table, table 12, next to an accountant and a local journalist. As Isabella took the stage to deliver her speech about empowering communities, I wonder if she heard the irony in her own voice. Then Richard Sterling took the microphone, and the real show began. Richard Sterling's voice boomed across the ballroom, practiced and confident, the kind of tone that demanded applause even before he said anything worth clapping for. "True charity," he said, smiling at the sea of glittering guests, "is knowing one's place in the order of things. Some are born to lead, to guide, to uphold tradition. Others serve best from behind the scenes, and there is honor in that." The crowd nodded like disciples. Isabella beamed. Victoria nearly glowed. When Sterling returned to our table, he looked at me with the smug satisfaction of a man who just delivered divine wisdom. "It's refreshing," he said, swirling his champagne, "to see young people like you who understand humility. So many today forget their place. But you," he smiled condescendingly, "you seem to appreciate the value of knowing where you belong." Victoria appeared beside him like a shadow. "Oh, Luna is wonderfully grounded," she added sweetly. "She's never tried to be something she's not. It's so admirable, the way she's embraced her supporting role in Nathan's life." The table chuckled. The journalist beside me looked horrified, like she just witnessed a public execution and couldn't intervene. I set down my glass slowly. The sound of crystal touching glass echoed louder than it should have. Then I smiled, the kind of calm, deliberate smile that always made people underestimate me. "You're right," I said quietly, my voice carrying farther than I intended. "I should never forget where I came from." The laughter faltered. Heads turned. Conversations at nearby tables began to quiet. In fact, I continued, rising to my feet. "I think it's time everyone here learned exactly where that is." The air shifted, a hush sweeping to the ballroom like a chill. Nathan's eyes found mine from across the room. He froze mid-conversation, the color draining slightly from his face. Isabella's smile stiffened. Victoria's glass stopped halfway to her lips. "I've been told," I said clearly, "that I should be grateful to be here, that my small-town roots make me lucky to have married into this family. But there's something all of you forgot to ask." I paused, scanning the room, feeling the weight of their curiosity. "You never asked who I actually am." Now you could have heard a pin drop. "My maiden name," I said slowly, "is Luna Montgomery." The reaction was instant. Gasps rippled across the ballroom. A few guests literally stood. The name Montgomery wasn't just known, it was revered. Old money, generational wealth, a dynasty in philanthropy older and far more powerful than the Cross family could ever dream to be. Richard Sterling went pale. "That's not possible," he stammered. "The Montgomerys founded the Montgomery Foundation in 1924. I finished for him. We funded educational programs, libraries, and literacy initiatives for over a century, including," I added, letting my gaze land squarely on Isabella, "the Cross Foundation, which, as of this moment, receives a significant annual donation from us." Silence. Real, stunned, breath-holding silence. Nathan looked like he'd been hit with a tidal wave. "Luna, why didn't you ever tell me?" he whispered. I met his eyes, soft, honest. "Because I wanted you to love me, not my last name. I needed to know if our marriage was built on truth, not reputation." He swallowed hard, emotion flickering across his face. Around us, the audience was still processing the social earthquake that had just hit. Richard finally spoke again, his voice trembling. "Even if that's true, that doesn't change." "That I should declare my worth sooner?" I interrupted, my tone sharp now. "That I should have demanded respect because of my wealth, not my character?" Isabella stood, her voice breaking for the first time all night. "Luna, dear, there's no need to make a scene." "Oh, but there is," I said firmly. "For 3 years, you've treated me like an intruder in my own marriage. You taught me that no matter how kind I was, how patient, how good, it would never be enough unless I came with a pedigree. So tonight I want you and everyone else in this room to see the cost of that arrogance." I pulled out my phone. My voice was calm, steady, commanding. "Hello, James? Yes, it's Luna Montgomery. Please draft a letter first thing Monday morning withdrawing all Montgomery Foundation funding from the Cross Foundation, effective immediately." The collective gasp was like a wave crashing through the hall. "We'll be redirecting those funds," I continued, "to a new initiative, one that supports people from modest backgrounds who are working to create real change. People who don't need titles or trust funds to prove their worth." Patricia Sterling's face had turned ghost white. Isabella's lips parted, but no sound came out. Victoria looked like she might faint. "Luna, please," Isabella finally whispered, stepping forward. "This is a misunderstanding." "There's no misunderstanding," I said evenly. "You've shown me who you are, and I believe you." Murmurs spread like wildfire. People were turning in their seats, whispering names, calculating fallout. The Cross Foundation, a social empire, had just lost its largest benefactor in one sentence. Nathan stepped beside me, shoulders squared. His voice was firm now, loud enough for all to hear. "I owe my wife an apology," he said, "for not defending her sooner, for not seeing how my silence let this happen." He turned toward his mother and sister-in-law. "From now on, anyone who disrespects Luna disrespects me. She has shown more grace, strength, and integrity than this family ever has." "Nathan," Isabella snapped, "you can't possibly take her side over your own family." He met her glare with quiet conviction. She is my family. She loved me when she thought I was a broke guy who forgot his wallet. She believed in me before she knew I was a cross. Everything she's done with honesty. Can you say the same? The silence that followed was deafening. Even the music had stopped. Victoria tried to recover, forcing a brittle smile. Surely this is all a misunderstanding. Luna was just making a point, weren't you, dear? I smiled, not cruelly, but with calm certainty. The point has been made. The question now is what you'll do with it. I let my eyes sweep across the ballroom, across the glittering crowd that had watched me with judgment for years. Maybe tonight will remind you, I said softly, that kindness doesn't come with a price tag, that humility isn't weakness, that the people you look down on might be the ones holding you up. I took Nathan's arm, and together we began walking toward the exit. Every pair of eyes followed us. At the doorway, I paused and turned back one last time. My grandmother once told me something. I said, my voice echoing through the hall. Real power isn't about making people feel small. It's about lifting them up. And tonight, you've all shown me what happens when people forget that. Then I turned and we left the ballroom, leaving behind a silence louder than any applause could ever be. Outside, the night air felt cool and clean, washing away the suffocating perfume of wealth and pretense. Nathan was quiet for a long time before finally saying, I can't believe you kept that secret for 3 years. I smiled, and I can't believe it took them 3 years to show me who they really were. He laughed softly, the sound of a man seeing clearly for the first time. You were right, Luna. You didn't need to prove anything. No, I said, looking out at the city skyline, lights shimmering like 1,000 tiny truths. But I needed them to remember that power and money mean nothing without decency. We drove home in comfortable silence, knowing that by morning, every headline in the city would be about the woman who silenced the Cross family with a single truth. But I didn't do it for revenge. I did it to remind myself, and maybe everyone watching, that no one gets to decide your worth but you, because sometimes the quietest person in the room isn't weak. She's just waiting for the right moment to speak.